911 is John. What's the address emergency?
Hi, there is an emergency. I found something in my son's closet wrapped in a plastic bag.
Okay, what was it?
I think it's a human head.
It's a what?
I think it's a human head.
Parents have some concerns of some stuff they may have found in your room?
Yeah, I believe so.
And what would it be?
A human head and hands.
In the case of Brian Cohee Jr., the answers are chilling. Diagnosed with autism and struggling with emotional disconnect, Cohee's descent into darkness ended in a severe murder. But how does someone admire figures like Adolf Hitler and Ted Bundy, considering them role models? Is Cohee a product of his environment, or is he simply a monster born from darkness? Stay with us till the end as we dive into the depths of depravity, exploring whether evil is born or made. Brian's story begins in Grand Junction, Colorado. At just 19, he committed a horrifying crime, despite being raised in what seemed like a normal, middle-class family. His father ran a life jacket program, and his mother operated a daycare. These were good, supportive people, yet like many parents, they missed some red flags, possibly because they believed in the best in their son. Now, as Brian grew up, troubling behaviors emerged. From early on, he showed signs of sadism in the way he enjoyed making others suffer. He thrived on hurting people emotionally and psychologically, often going out of his way to make life difficult for others. Former classmates described him as nasty, and he would intentionally trigger panic attacks in those who struggled with anxiety. He enjoyed seeing others in pain, whether it was emotional or physical. Despite coming from a family with the means to provide a stable upbringing, by middle school, Brian's behavior had escalated. His peers sensed something deeply wrong with him, and his inability to follow rules and respect others became a constant issue in school. There was an unsettling aura about him that hinted at the darkness inside, long before his crimes came to light. By the time Brian Cohee Jr. was in 11th grade, his behavior had escalated to the point where his peers didn't feel safe around him. His parents were called into a meeting with the school, which was a troubling situation for any parent. While cruelty among children is often temporary, Brian's actions seemed more deeply rooted. This wasn't just typical misbehavior. It had become so noticeable that teachers and other students couldn't ignore it. It had reached a level where the school felt it necessary to involve his parents, highlighting how severe the issue had become. Brian was diagnosed with several mental health disorders, including major depressive disorder, ADHD, and he was also on the autism spectrum. While ADHD can lead to focus and behavioral problems, and autism varies greatly in its impact, his behavior stood out for its antisocial nature. Brian struggled to connect with others in socially acceptable ways, which likely compounded the sense that something was off. After graduating high school, Brian found a job at Safeway as a courtesy clerk. His friend described him as edgy, with a dark sense of humor, often talking about killing, a topic that raised major red flags. While it's normal to use humor to cope, constantly discussing violence isn't typical. People around him, even those who knew him well, felt uneasy. Some outright hated him, and his behavior was so alarming that a friend once remarked, "If anyone's going to end up a killer, it'll be Brian." This instinctive fear people had about Brian wasn't misplaced. Even those who had grown close to him noticed the danger signs. Whether in jest or serious reflection, many sensed that Brian Cohee Jr. embodied a darkness that could lead to something far worse, an unsettling reality that would soon happen. On February 28, 2021, something strange happened involving Brian Cohee Jr. Emergency services were called after his car was found floating in the Colorado River. When officers arrived, they spoke with Brian's mother, Terry, who explained that her son, being an inexperienced driver, had accidentally parked at an angle, causing the car to roll into the river. It seemed like a teenage mistake, and the officers, remaining polite, accepted the story. Brian himself claimed he had been at the boat ramp for some alone time, to relax and think, and that the situation just unfolded. Eventually, a towing company arrived and pulled the car from the river. However, during the process, officers noticed red stains on the back bumper, which looked suspiciously like blood. When they questioned Brian, he assured them he wasn't injured. and they released the car to the family, believing the incident was nothing more than an accident. The next day, Brian's father, Brian Cohee Sr., discovered a wallet in his son's car. It didn't belong to Brian, it belonged to a 69-year-old homeless man named Warren Barnes. Brian Sr., thinking it might have been left by someone involved in towing the car, contacted Warren's workplace. Meanwhile, Warren's friends and family were growing worried, as he hadn't shown up in his usual spots. Warren Barnes, although homeless, was a beloved figure in Grand Junction, Colorado. Known for his kindness, warmth, and love of reading, Warren was a familiar face in the community. He had spent the last 4 years working odd jobs, and people cherished him for his selflessness and gentle nature. Businesses in the city even put out chairs for Warren to sit and read, as he was regarded as a positive, quirky presence in their world. Though his life may have been unconventional, he lived peacefully and brought a quiet joy to those who knew him. In Grand Junction, Warren Barnes was known as the reading man. Passers-by often greeted him, asked what he was reading, and wished him well. He was beloved by the community for his gentle and kind nature. So when he disappeared in early March 2021, people grew concerned. Warren had never missed a day of work, and his absence was noticed by friends, co-workers, and local business owners who were used to seeing him daily. One such business owner, Monique Lananti, who owns Monique's Bridal and would set out a chair to read, was the first to report him missing. She had seen him the day before, and when he didn't show up the next day, she knew something was wrong. Adding to the mystery, Warren's wallet had also been found in Brian Cohee Jr.'s car after it was pulled from the Colorado River. The wallet was found in a location Warren would not typically visit, which deepened the concerns about his disappearance. People began to fear the worst, though no one could have anticipated the horrifying truth about what had happened to Warren. On March 1st, 2021, Brian's mother, Terry, began searching her son's room. After finding Warren's wallet in Brian's car and noticing blood on the back bumper, she felt something was terribly wrong. She knew her son had exhibited disturbing behaviors in the past, making her deeply uneasy. Still, she likely believed she might find evidence of a theft or a hit-and-run accident. Something bad, but not unthinkable. But what she was about to discover would shatter any remaining hope. As she searched Brian's room, Terry's worst fears were confirmed. What she found was far beyond what any mother could ever imagine. She wasn't just uncovering evidence of a troubled young man. She was unearthing the horrifying reality that her son was a predator, someone capable of monstrous acts. The discovery in that room revealed the truth about Brian Cohee Jr., a truth that no one, not even his own mother, was prepared for. As Brian Cohee Jr.'s mother, Terry, searched his room, she made a discovery far beyond her darkest fears. Hidden in his wardrobe was a plastic bag containing a decomposing human head. Stunned and horrified, she also found a second bag, but this time she stopped herself from opening it. The gravity of the situation had sunk in. She realized she was no longer just dealing with a troubled young man, but a horrifying crime. Her maternal instincts kicked in, and instead of investigating further, she did the only thing she could. She called 911 from the backyard, ensuring that Brian, who was out front, couldn't hear her. In that moment, Terry likely feared for her own safety. She understood that her son, who had committed such a gruesome act, might harm her to protect himself. On the emergency call, Terry struggled to convey the horror of what she'd found. In disbelief, she told the dispatcher she thought there was a human head in her son's room, explaining she had seen an ear. Overwhelmed, she admitted her son had always had a fascination with the morbid, which she had brushed off, thinking he was channeling it into a future career as a crime scene investigator. But now she realized she had misunderstood the depth of his obsession.
911 is John. What's the address emergency?
Hi, there is an emergency. I found something in my son's closet wrapped in a plastic bag.
Okay, what was it?
I think it's a human head.
It's a what?
I think it's a human head.
Why do you think it's that?
Because it looks like it's all an ear.
Is it bloody or does it like anything like that?
Can you just come? Do I have to take a picture and send it to you?
What's the address?
The dispatcher, trying to remain calm, asked if her son was home and whether he had any weapons. Terry revealed that Brian likely had a shotgun, adding another layer of fear to the already unimaginable situation. She mentioned she hadn't opened the second bag, leaving it in the kitchen sink covered with a towel.
Is your son there now?
He just pulled up. We wanted to make sure he was here before we called.
How old is he?
19. He's had a little bit of a fascination with the morbid, but he was channeling it, I thought, into becoming a crime scene investigator, but not so much.
Do you think he's going to be cooperative with us?
I don't know. I don't think he'll be violent. Just came back from his friend's house.
Does he have any weapons in his room, or do you guys have any in the house?
I don't know. I think that he has a shotgun, but we can certainly remove it immediately before he gets in his room. He's out by the car now, so.
Is the bag still in the closet?
No, it's in my kitchen sink. And there's a secondary bag that I have not opened. It's currently covered with a towel.
And there's a second bag?
There's a second bag, though. I don't know what's in it. I didn't open it.
I'm sorry. Did he took the second bag out of the closet?
I took the second bag out of the closet and put it in the sink.
Where's Brian now?
I think he's still out front.
And you're in the backyard now?
I am, yes, because I don't want him to hear me.
During the call, Terry was not just reporting a gruesome discovery, but also trying to make sense of the nightmare unfolding before her. She was attempting to reconcile the son she knew with the monster she now realized he had become. Brian's interest in death and crime had not been harmless. It had been a precursor to something far darker. His supposed interest in forensics and crime scenes had been a mask, hiding a long-harbored desire to commit a murder. What she once thought was a quirky interest was now revealed to be a murderous obsession. Brian hadn't been preparing for a career in crime investigation. He had been preparing for a kill. This realization left Terry shattered as the truth about her son became horrifyingly clear. When the police arrived, there was no dramatic confrontation. Instead, Brian's arrest played out in a disturbingly calm manner. Body cam footage shows officers approaching him and explaining that his parents had found something concerning in his room. Without hesitation, Brian admitted what they would find: a human head and hands. When asked why he did it, he simply said, "I always wondered what murder was like." His response was chillingly devoid of emotion.
Cooperate? I am going to cooperate.
Okay, so parents have some concerns of some stuff they may have found in your room?
Yeah, I believe so.
And what would it be?
A human head and hands.
Do you have anything on you that's going to cut, poke, hurt, stick me anything without reaching for nothing? Don't reach for nothing.
My phone and my wallet, that's
okay.
it.
Well, I'm going to have you face that way. Put your hands on top of your head for me real quick. I just want to make sure you interlace your fingers for me real quick, all right?
Brian's behavior during the arrest was without any remorse or fear, suggesting more than just a lack of social awareness. Some might speculate that his behavior stemmed from being on the autistic spectrum, but others, including experts, would argue that his reaction points more to psychopathy, a complete disconnect from the gravity of his actions, a lack of empathy, and an inability to understand fear or consequences like most people. Meanwhile, Terry was devastated, watching her son get arrested. Just days earlier, she had found a decomposing head in his room. Now she was grappling with the truth that her son was a murderer. Warren Barnes, the missing homeless man, was identified as the victim. It confirmed the community's worst fears. Warren would never again sit outside local businesses, reading and greeting passersby. Brian was taken into custody, and police began interviewing the Cohee family. His father, who had found Warren's wallet and a knife in Brian's car earlier, confronted his son at the time. Brian had told his father that he found the wallet at the boat ramp, but his father had a deep sense that something was wrong. He just couldn't bring himself to believe that Brian was capable of such a gruesome crime. Terry, in her interview, recounted how she had been cleaning up her son's room, putting things away. She noticed a Rubbermaid container in his closet and started going through it, leading to the unimaginable discovery. The gruesome reality of her son's actions was unfolding, and nothing in her life would ever be the same. When Terry Cohee found the plastic bag in her son Brian's room, something felt off. The bag was heavy and covered in maggots, so she took it to the sink. Upon opening the first layer, she saw blood. With a sense of dread, she opened the second layer and found something unimaginable: a human head. Overwhelmed, she didn't open the second bag. Instead of immediately calling the police, she reached out to Brian's father, asking him to come home right away. This instinctual need to share the burden with her husband delayed the inevitable call to authorities. Brian, who was at a friend's house, was tricked into returning home when his family said his brother needed the car. Once home, Brian was arrested. In the police interview, Brian shockingly admitted to the murder without hesitation. He explained that he had killed Warren Barnes, a homeless man, using a kitchen knife. When asked why, he replied that he had always wondered what murder felt like. What was more disturbing was the excitement in his voice as he detailed the crime. Brian went on to give a chillingly graphic account of the murder. He had been driving around, depressed and in a dark state of mind, when he spotted Barnes. With a full moon illuminating the night, Brian approached him. After engaging Barnes in conversation, he pulled out a knife and attacked, stabbing him in the neck. Brian described how easy it was to overpower the older man, saying, "I was barely breaking a sweat." He admitted to making growling, animalistic sounds during the attack, completely overtaken by a frenzied adrenaline rush.
This is him. I was straddled on top of him like this.
Okay.
And he couldn't fight back. It was actually surprisingly easy. I was barely breaking a sweat. I thought, oh, this guy, he's going to be tough. But no, it was actually surprisingly easy.
Brian's narration became even more gruesome as he explained how he dismembered the body. After killing Barnes, he stripped him of his clothes and cut open his belly to examine his guts. He then decapitated him, giving the head a Glasgow smile, or what is known as a Joker smile, by cutting from ear to ear. Brian even destroyed Barnes's eyes by stabbing them and attempted to cut off his arms. He placed the severed head and hands in Ziploc bags, hiding them in his room. After the murder, Brian meticulously cleaned up the scene. He washed the knife, threw away the bloodied garbage, and put his clothes, stained with blood splatter, in the washing machine on high speed to remove any traces. This entire confession was delivered with eerie calmness and an alarming lack of remorse. What should have been a horrifying moment for most was instead an exhilarating experience for Brian, as he relived every gruesome detail of the murder with fascination. Listening to Brian Cohee's confession is nothing short of horrifying. His calm, almost excited behavior, as he nonchalantly describes the severe murder of Warren Barnes, is deeply unsettling. His excitement while talking to the officers, constantly smiling and even laughing at times, reveals a chilling lack of remorse. Cohee had carefully planned the murder, assembling a kill kit that included a 12-inch kitchen knife, plastic gloves, and other materials like zip ties. Despite experiencing initial panic during the act, Cohee pushed forward, repeatedly stabbing Barnes in the neck, unfazed by the victim's pleas for mercy. Warren Barnes, a beloved community member, was reduced to a target in Cohee's twisted mind, chosen simply because Cohee wanted to know what it felt like to kill. As Cohee continued to describe the dismemberment, he gave bizarre details about seeing Barnes's guts, remarking on their pinkness, then laughing and apologizing for how gruesome it sounded. His casual manner in talking about cutting off Barnes's head, hands, and arms, and how he tried to hide the evidence, is deeply disturbing. The excitement in his voice as he relived the crime made it clear that this was not an impulsive act. It was something he had been thinking about for a long time. Cohee admitted to police that he had been planning to kill someone for 6 months. He targeted a homeless man because, in his words, no one would miss him, showing a complete disregard for human life. He even considered killing a sex worker, thinking the same, that their disappearance wouldn't attract attention. His chilling detachment from the humanity of his potential victims made the crime even more devastating to comprehend. When investigators dug into Cohee's past, they discovered disturbing internet searches, including phrases like homicidal thoughts every day and how deadly is a stab wound. He had also looked into how people react during home invasions and knife-point confrontations, showing a disturbing obsession with violence. In 2018, Cohee had practiced killing on animals, admitting to strangling and decapitating a cat, which he kept for 3 days before disposing of it in the trash. Although this cat-killing incident was a well-known rumor in Grand Junction, those close to Cohee dismissed it as just that, a rumor. His friends refused to believe he was capable of such cruelty, even when the warning signs were glaring. It's a stark reminder that people often overlook or deny the unsettling behaviors of those they know, even when the red flags are impossible to ignore. In the police interview, Brian Cohee was asked if the murder had satisfied his curiosity, the dark urge he'd nurtured for so long. His response was chilling. Cohee described the act as an adrenaline rush. His body was shaking, and there was undeniable excitement. Yet afterward, he didn't feel the way he had expected. The intensity faded, leaving him feeling neutral. He didn't love or hate what he'd done, but upon reflection, Cohee claimed that he wouldn't have done it again, not because of any regret, but likely because the murder hadn't provided the lasting satisfaction he'd imagined. Cohee also admitted to taking pictures of Warren Barnes's mutilated body, though he later deleted them in an attempt to cover his tracks. The police, however, were able to recover the images, providing further evidence of Cohee's gruesome thrill in the murder. Disturbingly, he had written first in his phone notes the night of the murder, hinting at his intentions to kill again. He had even planned to keep one of Barnes's fingers as a memento to relive the experience over and over again. This is a hallmark of serial killer mentality, a desire to savor the crime beyond the act itself. On the night of the murder, Cohee had tried to dispose of Barnes's body by driving to the Colorado River. He placed the dismembered body parts in the trunk of his car, intending to dump them into the river. However, after discarding the remains, Cohee's car rolled into the river, getting stuck, which explained why the vehicle had blood traces. When questioned, Cohee directed the police to the exact location where they would find some of Barnes's remains, including his arms. Unfortunately, much of the body had been swept away by the river.
This your son right here?
Yep.
Hey, partner, you want to come out and talk to me real quick?
Sure. I
Appreciate
mean,
it, man.
I'm really cold. Is it
Doesn't
okay
have
if
any-
it's in here?
He took
Because
off his
fine.
pants because he had
Okay,
submerged.
that's fine. I did not know that. No, please stay in the car. All right. Nobody else in the car.
nope.
No,
Okay.
no, just us. I'm the father, that's the mother, and this is our son. He just
Sounds
called us 20
good.
minutes ago and said, Dad, I parked at the boat ramp and I messed up. I tried to get out of the car and it slid down.
Well, you're not hurt, right? You're okay.
No, just a little
Okay.
cold is all.
Just beside your pride a little bit.
And probably $7,000.
Okay. All right, man. Do you have your ID with you, driver's license, by any chance?
Thankfully,
What were you doing down here, bud?
well, I felt like I needed to get out, and I figured, why not park here and just
relax a little bit.
relax and think.
Okay.
And I parked on the boat ramp,
Okay.
and I thought it would be easy to get out.
Uh-huh.
But when I tried to,
Where did you park exactly? Were you down the hill a little bit?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay.
And then
When he got back in, go ahead.
when I got back in, I tried to put it in drive, and it didn't go up. So then I tried putting it in low gear, shimmying it a bit. That didn't work.
Were you facing down?
No,
at
I
this
was
point, or were
facing.
you
I was
this
facing
way?
up.
Okay.
You back down?
Yeah.
Really good
Because
idea.
As the case gained attention, those who had known Cohee, including former teachers, expressed little surprise at the revelations. Many of his teachers had felt uneasy around him, noting his disturbing behavior. They believed the school system had failed him by not providing adequate intervention when red flags were raised about his behavior. While some believed Cohee's path could have been altered with proper intervention, others saw him as someone who was always destined to become a predator. During the trial, which lasted 12 days, Cohee pled not guilty by reason of insanity. His defense argued that his diagnosed mental health disorders contributed to his inability to understand his actions. However, for many, the meticulous planning, the thrill in recounting the murder, and the cold lack of remorse painted the picture of someone who was born to kill. Despite his claims of a psychotic episode triggered by seeing Barnes, 2 state psychologists declared him sane, noting that he clearly understood the consequences of his actions. Cohee's defense leaned on his diagnosed mental health issues, including ADHD and depression. Maintaining these combined with environmental stressors made him insane. However, testimonies from his family doctor and therapist, B. Phillips, indicated that Cohee had not shown signs of psychosis or tendencies leading up to the murder. In therapy, he had discussed predatory behavior and admitted to bullying others intentionally, demonstrating an awareness of right and wrong, but choosing to disregard moral boundaries. Ultimately, his actions reflect not a momentary insanity, but a deeply rooted antisocial personality, highlighting the disturbing reality of someone who knowingly operates outside norms. During a court assessment in 2019, Brian Cohee Jr.'s mother, Terry, expressed concern over his inability to understand how his choices impacted his future and those around him. This lack of awareness led to a diagnosis of level 1 autism by Dr. Katrina Catton. When asked about his role models, Cohee shockingly named notorious figures like Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, and serial killer Ted Bundy, indicating a disturbing fascination with individuals known for their destructive legacies. Such responses prompted Dr. Catton to recommend immediate further evaluation, highlighting the dangerous mindset Cohee exhibited. In the weeks leading up to his arrest, a coworker observed Cohee becoming increasingly talkative, suggesting a growing fixation on violence. When she attempted to reach out, he dismissed her kindness as mere pity, revealing his deep-seated feelings of isolation. Ultimately, the jury deliberated for only 2 days before finding Cohee guilty of first-degree murder, rejecting the insanity defense. They concluded that he clearly understood right from wrong, also convicting him of tampering with a deceased body and evidence. As the verdict was read, Cohee showed no emotion, very different with the emotional relief of those present, who sought justice for the severe murder of a kind-hearted man at the hands of someone who derived pleasure from violence. At sentencing, Brian Cohee Jr. received a life sentence without parole, a necessary measure to protect society from individuals with such a predatory mindset. Judge Richard Gurley, who has 37 years of experience in the criminal justice system, labeled the case as one of the most horrific he had encountered, acknowledging Cohee's mental issues while declaring his understanding of right and wrong. The impact on Cohee's family was extreme. His mother, Terry, expressed deep sympathies for the victim, Warren Barnes, and acknowledged the toll it had taken on their family. Warren's sister and niece spoke of their grief, emphasizing the community's love for Warren and their hope that Cohee would never harm another person. Cohee is now serving his sentence at the Buena Vista Correctional Complex, where he will have time to reflect on his actions. One can only hope that his neutral feelings after the murder might likely turn into regret. The case resonated deeply with the Grand Junction community, leading to a memorial for Warren that symbolizes his worth, a value that Cohee failed to recognize when he chose his victim. In the end, Warren's tragic death serves as a reminder of the value that lies within every human existence, regardless of social classification. It raises questions about the nature of evil and whether individuals like Cohee are born or shaped into who they are. What do you think? Nature, nurture, or something else? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys soon.